Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Finding Synergy in Organic and Paid Social Strategies. My name is Ricky Bijlani. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing here at AudienceX. I just want to thank you all for taking a bit of your time out of your day to join us. I'm going to give this just a couple more minutes to let people finish joining us. And while I do, I'll go a couple of quick notes before we get started. First, we will indeed be sending a recording of this webinar to all registrants afterwards, so everyone can look out for that soon. We'd love to hear from you. We will be taking some time to answer any questions that you may have at the end of today's presentation. So if you do have any, you can go ahead and submit them at any time via the Zoom's Q&A feature right at the bottom of the interface. For those of you just joining us, welcome. So today we'll take a closer look at both the organic and paid sides of social media marketing, how each can be best leveraged, where they are distinct, and how you can effectively use both to build off one another and deliver stronger results. Here to guide us through a bit of that today, I am pleased to introduce our speakers from AudienceX, Keith Mantia, who is our Director of Search and Social, and Giovanna Dominguez, who is our Senior Social Strategist. Keith and Giovanna, thank you very much for being here today and hosting this discussion. I know it's going to be great. So with that, I'm delighted to go ahead and hand the show off to you. Before diving in, if you can briefly introduce yourselves, including your roles and background.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name is Keith Mantia. Let's see if I can get these slides working for me now. There we go. My name is Keith Mantia. I'm the Director of our paid and organic search and social teams here at AudienceX. I've been in the industry for about 12 years. I've worked for a number of different types of companies and brands, worked for some large entertainment studios, and some enterprise D2C brands, as well as a lot of small and medium-sized businesses as well. So I've got a lot of knowledge and experience on the topic and looking forward to walking through everything with you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Giovanna Dominguez. I'm a senior social strategist here at AudienceX. I'm a member of the search and social team along with Keith and have been here for about 3 months with 7 years of previous experience in the field. I specialize in building up brands through various social media strategies and creative community development. I've worked at social media agencies and software companies with clients that range from local lemonade trucks to global Fortune 500 companies like Target and Johnson & Johnson.
So today we're going to be talking through how to drive synergy between your organic and paid efforts across social media. So we're going to talk about really just level setting what we're defining as paid and organic. We're going to talk about how to bridge the gap, talk through some examples of application and some frequently asked questions and scenario planning towards the end before we get to questions. So as Ricky mentioned, if you do have any questions that you want answered, definitely note that in the Q&A part of the chat, and we'll try to get to that by the end of the call. But really just to start out, synergy in general. Synergy, as we're defining it, is really the interaction or cooperation of two or more pieces that produce a combined effect that's greater than the sum of their separate parts. So I like to think of this as just harmony, having harmony between your paid and organic efforts. And really the point or desire of doing this is to help align your organic and paid efforts so that you can execute in a way that's mutually beneficial. You can help extend your organic reach, complement your paid efforts, get some learnings between the two. So ultimately, at the end of the day, you can maximize your return and reduce waste, both in time investment and in media investment as far as media dollars go. So I'm going to pass it off to Giovanna, who's going to give us really just a walkthrough of how we're defining organic, paid, and social to set the tone for this conversation first and foremost. Giovanna, how are you?
So organic social, in a nutshell, can be defined as any social media activity without paid promotion behind it. And these are tools that are free to use within a platform to engage with your audience or current or potential clients or community members. Having an organic presence is making sure that you establish a brand page or profile that can be used as your brand hub. Success in organic really requires being entertaining as well as informational. It's not enough to be educational and salesy like you would with, let's say, paid. Your brand's page can serve as a place to be discovered and to host brand information or interact with customers and followers, which is very different from paid. The purposes for creating social profiles are abundant, but there are two key benefits. Number one is creating a presence where your potential customers are around most often and that you can engage with them. And number two is communicating with your existing customer base, both of which will help maintain and keep that community alive as loyal brand followers and community members. For example, let's say you are a pool and water gear company. You sell everything from pool floats to kayaks to beach umbrellas, and you want to maintain an organic social presence. Doing so can create a really loyal following of customers online that associate your brand and your products with summer and outdoor water fun. How do you even do that? You're going to start by sharing content that goes beyond your product and provides further value beyond what you have to offer. This can be in the form of some summer travel tips, child safety guidelines, and other creative posts. These are the things that will keep your customers coming back and solidify that place that you occupy in their mind. Another good example for the uses of having an organic presence and organic profiles is making sure you're following and handling customer support needs or really common FAQs about your product or your services or your brand. Answering customer issues or potential customer questions can be a really simple and low stakes way for your clients to get answers from you without having to go through other really extensive channels, which is one of the reasons a lot of people follow brands and products that they love on social media. Because of this, your organic brand voice is often less direct and formal. You can use your platform to speak to your customers on a more personal level, and your followers are kind of, already aware of what your brand is and what you guys offer. So you can pull back a little bit of the curtain and connect with them at a deeper level, which a lot of the times you can't do with paid.
I'm sure we've all seen that, going to a brand's Facebook page or commenting just to get a response from customer support. So that's definitely a really great example, Ivana.
For sure. And there are some things that are very unique to organic. Mostly it's the ability to grow your following and that community. So communicating with existing and interested customers and community members at no or low cost is the biggest and most major benefit of having an organic presence. It's a simple and free way to respond, like, or reshare customer content with, having the connection and creating that bond with your community with growth in mind and long-term permanence. Speaking of connections, an organic presence has endless possibilities on how you can do just that. Tactics include everything from keeping up with trends to cultural moments to even sharing them alongside with your community and being really mindful of current events and content and the sentiments you share around that content and how you and your community are going through that journey, whether it be a political event or a news event or anything of the like. Growing your following and building your communities and customer connections can also really help gather really valuable data and learnings that can inform your advertising campaigns, your product development, and other business strategies. You can also use your social community as a focus group of sorts, which is something that I've seen in the past that a lot of brands and companies really don't take advantage of. You can use these communities to test out new product ideas. You can experiment with new service offerings, and you can do so through limited time offers and deals that you offer only on social media. Your social community is so much more than, just people that follow you. This is a group of people you can use to your brand's advantage to provide value to them and to your company. Another thing to remember is that content can also be one size fits all. So organic social allows for custom tailored content that can be used for your social audience as a whole. Because of this, your tone can be more personal with less focus on brand awareness. As you know, that's not really something that's too possible when you're doing paid. So you'll want to remember that about organic, that your content can be created for a larger group of people. It also allows you to be a lot more flexible and creative with the content you post. You can post relevant news, other articles, you can reshare things, you can retweet things, or you can post polls like an Instagram story from a pizza place who uses a poll to gauge which pizza flavor of the month they should go with that month. And it could say walnut pear and goat cheese or chorizo supreme. And these are really interesting and creative ways to engage with your audience and also gather product development ideas. Most importantly, these are tools that in many cases you wouldn't promote or put paid behind, but you still want to be utilizing. And you also have the ability to do outreach. And you can engage with not only your owned content, but non-owned content, non-owned posts, non-owned comments. The main question you hear a lot about this subject is, why would you want to engage with non-owned posts? It's important to keep a pulse on the myriad of conversations around your brand and your product at all times on social, even on non-owned posts. This is a great way to keep track of any potential mounting product issues or feedback, or even like really steep declines in brand sentiment or product sentiment. And all of these things could be developing outside of your community. They don't necessarily always happen where you can see them on your own posts and your own content. So it's always a good strategy to keep those types of things in mind. A good example of this is recently there's been a lot of poor feedback from customers of different popular retailers. And people have been noting that there's been a really steep decline in the overall customer experience. And this has changed since the beginning of the pandemic. You're seeing a lot of really bad feedback in terms of poor product stocking, poor quality products, and a lack of in-store customer assistance just because there's not enough workers. So if you're one of these brands, if you're one of these retailers, in order to get the full scope of your the conversation surrounding these topics, you'll want to keep tabs on non-owned content and conversations.
And we see this a lot with larger brands, especially if there's some kind of brand alignment that isn't even a direct competitor. You can always jump in and join that conversation, which can often grow your own organic presence as well.
Yeah, very true. This is something that's really popular on TikTok right now. You'll see a lot of different NFL teams. Like, yes, they're competitors and they're different brands, but they'll all comment on each other's things. And it's a really good way to spread awareness and spread reach too. So we're at paid social, a very important and key topic. Having a paid presence involves a lot of investment in temporary promotion of content on a social media platform. That's essentially what paid is. And there's several purposes and benefits of paid campaigns, and we're going to go through some of them with you today. One of the first ones being the ability to extend reach and to expand beyond your core organic audience. Your organic social media community has reach limitations, and that can be remedied with the use of added paid reach. When you're just using organic and not using paid behind your organic or paid co-aligned with your organic strategies, you're really just sending your message to the people that follow you, and using paid can really help fix that issue. With paid, you can also continue to drive awareness to a specific group of users, customers, and other stakeholders with the intention of garnering as much action from them as possible. For instance, if you're AMC, one of the largest chain of movie theaters in the country, you won't want to focus your paid social efforts for promoting the next Mission Impossible versus a Pixar film in the same way. Different demographics within your larger general customer base will have a different level of interest in these two films, and paid can help you target them differently. You can target young mothers and young fathers as one audience with paid, and then that would be for the Pixar films. And then for Mission Impossible, you would target, let's say, males 25 plus with your paid advertising. So it's something to keep in mind when you're considering paid and how it can be useful to you. For instance, if AMC shared a post about Mission Impossible on Instagram, their organic channel, it would be viewed by all their followers without any real audience targeting or segmentation. So the goals there would be a little bit different, and paid essentially helps you refine those goals and make sure that you're doing what you need to do in order to get the results you want. Paid also helps drive various different types of growth. So paid can help you drive organic community growth. It can help you drive sales growth, and it can help you even drive brand awareness growth. And so we're going to be talking a little bit more about all of these things throughout the rest of the presentation. Some of the things that are unique to paid are, with paid, you need to be more intentional and direct with your message to be effective. Your design copy, your post copy need to be both informative and have a really clear CTA or call to action. You should also ensure that you're highlighting your brand and value proposition to the customer when you're designing this messaging and this content. So those are things that are very unique to paid, whereas on organic, you don't really have to focus on those things so much, as more like you're building a community and focusing on what the community might want long term, whereas the direct approach with paid is more a little bit short term. Like I said, paid lacks that community. So because there is no community that comes along with a paid post, it's more direct response focused. And it should elicit a really quick connection between you and the customer in order to make sure and encourage the prospect takes a very specific action on your paid post. In order to lower instances of users swiping by your paid posts, your messaging should also be incredibly succinct and immediately alerting, which is what's going to drive those actions. You also have a lot more control with paid. I'm guessing you guys already know that by the way I'm kind of talking about paid, about control, and about all the things that you can measure for, but you really do have the ability to segment audience based on goals and tailoring your message just to those that belong in that group. And this is really important when you're targeting a certain segment of your audience, like with our previous AMC example. Messaging for young parents and messaging for 25 plus males should be really different in terms of voice and tone, and in terms of how you're targeting them with your paid ads. Another thing you can control is how you leverage and what you leverage. You can actually promote organic posts with paid. You can do this with boosting, which is a post on your organic channels that you can apply more money to in order to boost to an audience of your choosing. Or you can even use dark posts, which is an unpublished social post that is promoted as an ad to a specific audience, but it's a post that cannot be found organically and it doesn't appear on your brand's timeline. And you want to think of these methods as kind of like the way that paid can help organic, but also like a layer on top of your organic to make sure that your organic needs and your organic goals are going to come to fruition. Last but not least is the amazing way that you can tailor your ad placements, which also provides a lot more control. By placing ads on different platforms, in feed versus in stories, or deciding who sees your ads or when they see them, can really provide a better and more customized user experience. On platforms like Facebook and Snapchat and Twitter, you can even control whether or not an ad is non-skippable, which is something that is definitely should be utilized and something you really can't do on organic. You can't make anything skippable on organic. So that is very unique to paid and something that everyone should be very aware of when considering your paid options. So now we're going to talk about how to bridge that gap. Why is this synergy important? Why do organic and paid need each other? While organic remains free, reach on organic isn't really guaranteed. Organic reach is affected by a platform's algorithm, which determines what content a user sees and when. These algorithms are triggered by user interaction, user behavior, things like engagement, comments, shares, things like that. And I like to consider this a virality score, similar to how trending topics work on Twitter. The more people are commenting, reacting, and sharing a piece of content, the more relevant and meaningful and impactful the platform deems it to be. Over the years, this has really been an added emphasis on personalized content. So this has significantly impacted a brand's ability to reach its followers. It used to be that, a couple years back, you could very well reach virality with just an organic presence, but that's just not as possible anymore. Starting around 2014, organic algorithms began deprioritizing content from brands. Instead of putting an emphasis on personal and highly relevant content, they went in a different direction. Between February 2012 and March 2014, organic reached an average Facebook page, like the organic reach on an FB page, dropped from 16% to 6.5%, a negative 59% drop. And then again, between January and July 2016, publishers saw another decline in organic reach on Facebook that was negative 52%. This impact is really hard on businesses who are investing a lot in content to post, but no one's seeing it. As a matter of fact, a 10% max of what you publish on average is being seen. In most cases, it can even be as low as 2 to 3%.
I just want to jump in here and say, like in general, like this makes sense, right? These are social platforms. So the platforms are trying to prioritize personalized content and not just delivering brand content all the time. So really, it is impacting businesses. And when you think of someone like Beyonce, who has a following of, I think, 56 million fans on Facebook, that means even as a brand, even as a highly relevant brand for a lot of people that follow her, she's really only going to be able to reach 1.2 million people organically, which is a tiny portion of her overall audience. So this is really impacting brands a ton. And this visual here is, I think, really a great example of that. As organic reach is going down, you can see Facebook stock price going up, which is really just proof that as these algorithms were changing to prioritize more personalized content, it's becoming a little bit more of a pay-to-play space to make sure you can get your message out there.
Pay-to-play that's the exact words. I mean, it's just crazy that someone like Beyonce, everybody knows Beyonce, she's a huge figurehead in our cultural world, has 56 million followers and only reach of 1.2 million.
Craziness.
It's crazy. So what does that mean for you guys? What will the power of synergy allow you to do? One of those things is that creating this synergy will help you align your efforts between organic and paid so you can start to bridge that gap between the two and find a way that it can be mutually beneficial. You can do this by extending and maximizing your organic reach by putting paid efforts behind it. You can also do this by maximizing your investment and efficiency, such as leveraging performance from one to influence the other. And you can also do this by expanding reach to new and relevant audiences for growth. And part of that also really includes capturing free learnings to help inform media investment and content creation. Let's say like tracking organic resonance and creative messaging performance of your content to know what to use for your paid ad efforts and that promotion. This is a really great way to kind of hone your creative testing skills in a really low risk environment, because you're not essentially putting any money behind testing out these things organically, but you can very well gather what's useful, what metrics you need, and then use that as a way to inform what you're going to put money behind and how you're going to promote and how you're going to create content for promotion. All of these
And I love this.
All of these methods will really help you make better informed decisions and create true synergy between your organic and social programs.
So I was just going to say that I think this is a really good way to describe it. The 2 + 2 = 5 example, or saying the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Both organic and paid work perfectly well together, but you really do get just so much more impact, efficiency, and they play off each other when you use them together. And it really does end up driving a lot more performance, and you get more results when you combine them together. So we're going to talk through a couple examples of application, some do's and don'ts, some tips and tricks, and then we're actually going to get into some pro tips and things that you won't necessarily find from the platform documentation themselves. So a couple of things that you definitely want to do when you're talking about leveraging synergy or pairing your organic and paid strategies together. First and foremost is you do want to test creative messaging and strategy to influence the other. Depending on what your organic following is like, you have the opportunity, like Giovanna said, you have a focus group of people that are qualified customers or users who are electing to follow your page or brand. Who better to ask about what is important and relevant to them than that organic audience? So you can test out creative types, you can test out creative messaging, promotions, really the work, so that when you're ready to get to that paid step, you know that the people that are most likely to purchase from your brand or company, that message is going to be hyper relevant to them, and you're going to maximize your investment there. Another thing you do want to do is extend reach and use of tools that are only available in organic, and then support them with paid. So in some cases, there's a lot of new functionality on a platform that's only available organically, but in some cases, there's kind of back route ways that you can use them in paid as well. So a great example of this was Instagram countdown stickers. So those were only available organically. So an advertiser, if they were to go in the ad portal and try and build an ad with that, it's just not possible. It's not something that you're able to do. But if you take an organic post that you're leveraging that countdown sticker for, you can then put promotion behind it and leverage that against your paid audiences. So it's a way that you can stand out and really use tools that not all advertisers even understand how to do in a paid environment, which in a lot of cases drives up engagement, especially if you're talking about a countdown sticker, which will remind users of when something's happening. And it can also help drive engagement if you're using, polls and other, organic tools available there. Another do here is wait before supporting an organic post with paid. Essentially, what we're saying here is let them deliver a little bit to see how that content or that post is resonating with your audiences before you're adding paid behind it. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this in the scenario planning a little bit later, and in when you'd want to put paid behind an organic post, or if and when and at what time. But in general, don't just automatically create an organic post and put paid behind it right away. So we'll talk about that in a little bit, but you want to give it a little bit of time. And the last piece is ensuring that you have a consistent brand voice. That's going to be really important, especially for net new audiences when you're reaching them with paid advertising. If they do end up getting over to your website or your page or your profile on Instagram or Facebook or whatnot, you want them to be able to remember what they saw the last time and say, oh yeah, this is the brand that I was looking at, or this is exactly what I was looking for. It just will help in resonance and also with ad recall as well. And a couple of don'ts that we have here when you're combining both paid and organic together. You don't want to put paid behind every single organic post. It's not always going to make sense. In a lot of cases, like Giovanna mentioned, or in an organic environment, you have the ability to speak much more directly to your customers and clients. And because you know they're qualified and they already know about your brand, you have the ability organically to post things that may not even be, working towards your brand goals, but may just be relevant to your clients, or an important piece of news to share that may be aligned with your brand as well. And in those cases, it won't necessarily make sense to push out to put paid behind it to reach net new audiences, because it just may not make sense. So you always have to kind of think through that and just assume you don't need to put paid behind every organic post. The next is forgetting to leverage your organic audience data when you're targeting paid. So as Giovanna mentioned, you have a following or a collective group of people in your organic following. So when you go to decide to expand your reach or try and drive some net new business or growth, you have to, in the paid environment, select who you want to target to deliver that message to. And it's a great tool for you to be able to lean into your organic following and understand, okay, like what ages, what demographics, what interests are my customers currently interested in? So then you can try and find a specific target in your paid strategy that aligns with that, so that you're not wasting dollars and reaching people who just won't be interested in your brand at all. And the last piece is setting it and forgetting it. So in a lot of cases, you don't want to just set your organic or your paid strategies and just wait for them to finish. You want to be really involved in understanding, how your posts are performing right when you first post them, on what days and what times are really working to drive engagement and get people to comment. So you really want to get the most information or take advantage of the information available when you're doing both paid and organic strategies, so that you can learn and adapt and apply those learnings down the line. So Giovanna, I'm going to ask you to jump in and kind of walk through some of our rules for success or best practices before we get into some of our pro tips.
Yeah, of course. So we have some really nifty tips, sort of, rules for success. First one being, be where your audience and community is most active, when they're most active, and be really selective of where you're investing your time and effort to ensure it really aligns with your business goals. For instance, TikTok would not be a good place for a 55+ cruise liner to have a prominent presence on. And in the same vein, you also wouldn't want to have a heavy presence on Facebook if you're a toy slime company. You want to be really strategic about which channels you're using, how often you're using them, and when you're using them. Next, you want to really make sure to establish your brand page as a community source of information. And once again, please avoid exclusively salesy posts and be a little bit more creative with your posts and feature your products and services in really interesting and valuable ways. You'll also want to make sure that you're leveraging your high performance posts with strong organic engagement, such as comments and shares, when and where might be applicable. And you do this by gathering data and learnings from posts, and then potentially not only using that data and that learning to inform paid, but also maybe putting paid behind those posts. Like I said before, you can use boosting, you can use dark posts. There's a lot of options there to add an extra layer of success to your organic posts. Another thing you're going to want to consider is that organic content really should offer followers something of value. Besides your product and your services, what does your brand have to offer? Is it entertainment? Is it humor? Is it helpful information that really aligns within your industry? You really need to find your niche, essentially. You need to find your space on social where you're the only one or one of the few people that are providing this type of valuable content to them. This really makes it a lot easier to engage with your audiences. Engaging with your audience on social goes beyond just liking and responding to their comments. You have to have multi-sided conversations with your audience at all times. And this is the best way to fully engage them. This could mean a live Q&A on Facebook, or starting a Twitter thread with a really strong and thought-provoking topic of discussion. There's lots of ways for you to consistently have engaging conversations with your audience on organic social. You also really want to make sure that you are using paid to extend reach to organic following as needed. Use audience insights from organic and from your organic following to develop audience targeting for your paid strategy. And again, focus on the potential strategy and the synergy of your organic and your paid efforts as a combined key to success. One can't really thrive without the other, essentially. Their goals should be aligned, and their success is very crucial to the other. You'll also want to make sure that you are ensuring really clear and prominent branding. And this includes paid and organic content design, profile design, and your brand voice and tone. While your brand voice and tone can deviate a little bit from paid to organic, you'll want to make sure that you have essentially an umbrella of brand voice and tone that will work for paid and will work for organic with slight changes and deviations to both. But essentially, your brand tone on paid and your brand tone on organic shouldn't be wildly different from each other. They should be like brother and sister or twins. Same parents, just different messages, but they all exist under that umbrella. With that being said, you want to keep these messages short and sweet. With the increased popularity of messaging being delivered in short form video format, and people's attention spans are increasingly becoming smaller and smaller, nobody really wants to read paragraphs to get your main brand or product message. So always make sure that what you want to say is very easily and quickly digestible.
So we consider these to be really baseline rules for success that everyone should be applying when they're considering pairing their organic and paid strategies together. We're also going to go through what we consider to be like some pro tips and tools and some back-end ways of leveraging specific aspects of both to provide additional synergy. So first and foremost, we've got 4 here, is that not all platforms and algorithms are created equal. So plan accordingly. And how to make the best of this is really to be selective and intentional with where you're investing your efforts. Organic reach on social media, like here's a couple examples. Facebook has really, really low organic reach. LinkedIn has the second highest, and Instagram has really strong organic reach, up to 10% in a lot of cases. But if you look at the second chart, there's also additional context or details that you'd want to look at. So even though organic reach is really low on Facebook, the ability of someone to see one of your posts, whether it be organic or paid, and then click to your profile is going to be much higher versus on Instagram, which is just very, very low. So really, depending on your challenges to resources, you can be more intentional and selective with the platforms that you're investing your time into. And this is super, super important. So knowing, for instance, that Instagram has a stronger organic reach than Facebook or LinkedIn, but has a much lower organic discoverability or profile viewability, if your spend is really limited and you need to squeeze the most you can out of your organic efforts only, Facebook may not be the best place for you to have a presence, or at the very least, it may not be the only place you want to do that. And it may be worth doing some research to understand if your audience is active on another platform that might have better organic reach that you could start leveraging to grow your business that way. So just ask yourself, does it make sense to have a presence here? Is my audience there? And is my audience there with enough scale to make up for having a presence on other platforms with low organic reach? The next one is give people and your followers a reason to follow and share. Organic content, as Giovanna mentioned earlier, really should offer value. And it doesn't come in one specific way. That could be entertainment value. It could be pearls of wisdom. It could be even just an opportunity to connect with the broader community. So you need to make sure that what you're putting out there is going to make sense and is going to resonate with audiences. And we've included a couple examples here of the top things that encourage customers to like and share on a post. Posts that entertain or posts that inspire, that teach, tell a story, and of course, obviously discounts and sales. So using one, or in best case scenario, a combination of these characteristics will allow you to piece together a message or post that will maximize your engagement and really get you the most out of both. So we've included a couple of examples here that I really love. One of them here is Boxed Water, which is on the left. So here, this is on Instagram. They're really leaning into the visual elements of the platform and using really timely, relevant, seasonal messaging with the brand integration that feels much more native, fun, and relevant. So, this was posted, I think, right before May. So they're talking about May showers. We're on Instagram, so it's very visually captivating. It's very clean looking, and it includes brand integration without it looking super, super salesy. So this is a really great way to integrate it into a platform. And the other one here is the San Diego Zoo, which this is an example from TikTok, which is again, another one that I love, but they're really leaning into the musical and fun elements of the platform on TikTok to highlight the zoo, the different animals that are around there, but in a way that feels really, really native and fun to the platform. And it's very, very entertaining. And just like a quick other kind of side note to that, use of pets in organic, at least when it's relevant, drives up engagement a lot. There's a statistic showing the average brand sees about an 89% increase in comments when using animals or pets. So that's a great idea to do as long as it makes sense for your brand. If it's completely different or doesn't make sense, you don't want to do that. But where you can, if it does align, definitely a pro tip for getting added engagement and resonance. Our third pro tip here is using new tools and trending topics. So you can get ahead by adopting some of these new platform trends and tools early. Platform algorithms often force favored new formats or experiences to help capture data and understand whether or not their users are going to adopt them long term. And doing so can really give you added reach and exposure. So make sure to strike while the iron's hot. A couple of examples here, like I'm sure a number of us remember the early days of Instagram stories, Facebook stories, or when they started releasing Facebook and Instagram Live or Instagram Reels, Twitter Spaces. All of those new formats were prominently placed at the top or in front of the user experience, even before those products were widely adopted or even being used. So when those opportunities come up, you should hop on board and ride that wave to the best of your ability. Don't be afraid to try out new tactics, even if they seem unfamiliar or advanced if you're not super comfortable in the digital space. But it's a really the best way to learn is by doing, but it also creates a really fun opportunity to engage with your users and followers and have that kind of shared experience of trying something new together. And last piece to this, and it isn't only tied to tools available on a platform. You can also do this in a much lower lift way by leaning into things like national holidays. So if you know your audience really well, you could find holidays that are related to your customers or your fans' hobbies, habits, or lifestyles. So you can choose a mix of dates or events that inspire, inform, and even celebrate your followers. And same thing with trending hashtags to kind of jump on and join the conversation that way. You do just want to make sure that you're not doing every public holiday or every national holiday. You don't want to overwhelm your audience, and you want to make sure that you're keeping your message relevant at all times so that it's not just skipped by. And the last one here, and honestly is one of the most important, is you need to consider the evolution of your strategies. You have the ability to test. You should learn from those tests and the stuff that you're doing, and you should adapt your strategies. See what types of content and creative are getting the most organic reach, which ones are driving the most comments, shares, and just general engagement and performance, and use those in your ongoing strategy. And I know we talked about that a little bit earlier of leveraging some organic learnings before you start investing money, right? So if you know something's working, getting your customers and fans to comment, engage, and even share your post, you should definitely use that for your paid audience as well, because it's going to be most relevant and really get them to resonate. And really, I guess, in addition to this, get started. There is no single secret to success for either paid or organic. It's always going to be a learning process. So as long as you go into it knowing that it's going to be a learning process, there very well could be kind of mistakes or things that don't go right, but it can also lead to a lot of big wins. And at the very least, trying new things can give you some really important learnings for your strategy down the line. At the end of the day, the social landscape and platforms are constantly changing. Literally every week, there's new functionality or tools, and sometimes even new platforms that become available. So understanding what those are, what trends are currently happening, and understanding how that could impact where and how you're reaching your audience is going to be very, very important in the long run. So next up, we're going to go through some frequently asked questions, things and topics that we generally see come up when we're talking about synergy between organic and paid together. We'll give you some examples. We'll leave some time at the end so we can do some questions as well. But first and foremost, a lot of questions you get is, when should I post organically versus paid? And I guess the question that I generally follow up with is, ask yourself, who is this post for? Is it relevant for your followers and for all of your followers? Just keep in mind, like Giovanna had mentioned, when you're posting organically, that just goes to everyone that's following the brand page. So you don't have the ability organically to say, okay, I want to post this and only have it reach men or women of a specific age, gender, demographic, or interest. So if it's relevant to all followers, but relevant to everyone, you can definitely do it on paid. But if it is only relevant to a certain subset of customers or prospective customers, you may only want to do a paid version so that it doesn't live for everyone to see on your brand page. The other thing to consider is time frame. If there's a specific promotion, a limited offer, something that expires, that's a great opportunity for you to lead into paid. Because as Giovanna mentioned earlier, when something is on your organic page, it's there for everyone to see, to come back and visit, unless of course you delete it. But for the most part, it's just going to live in your organic page. So if you were to post something like, oh, we have a sale today, it ends at 3 p.m., for example, if you forget to delete that post, you could have people kind of clicking through, asking questions, being like, why can't I get this deal the following day? Which can cause a lot of problems. But if you leverage paid for those instances, those assets or those ads don't live on your brand page. They're only active and live and available to see for those being advertised to. So that's a great instance in when you might want to use a paid tactic instead of organic. Yeah, Giovanna, if you could take this next one, which is, should I promote an organic post or should I create a dark post? And actually, if you could remind everyone what a dark post is as well.
Yeah, so a dark post is essentially something that lives on your organic feed, but isn't viewable by everybody. So that's kind of a little bit of an explanation of what a dark post is. And it really depends on like your goal. So for a dark post, like how do you know? It really depends. So if you want to boost a targeted campaign and only reach a precise audience, then you'll want to use a dark post. If you want to amplify the reach of a targeted audience outside of the reach of your current followers, then you want to use a boosted post. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. One is essentially, you trying to put some paid, the boosted part, you trying to boost this to the followers you already have. And a dark post is more precise and audience-based. Another good thing to remember is that Facebook rewards content that promotes engagement and sharing. So the number one way to get your content engaged with is to have followers and fans see your content. So you also want to remember like the strategy behind boosting something based on the channel. That could really be different depending on like Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, but something like boosting could really work on Facebook.
And I've actually got something to chime in on that. So if you've got something that's really resonating well with your audiences or your current following or customers, and you're getting a lot of people that are sharing, maybe tagging their friends or commenting how much they love it, that's a really great opportunity. Rather than creating a dark post, which is going to live on its own, if you want to take that and promote it against net new audiences, not only do you know that that message is relevant, but everyone that you're pushing to is going to see all those comments and positive feedback and sentiment on those posts as well. So if it lives organically, it will always be on your page for everyone who goes to your page to see it. But also you can put all of that community and conversation and, for essential, the purpose is really like a review, right? In a lot of cases, if friends that you follow or just other people online are loving something, or it's really, really well respected or well reviewed, that's really important information and great supplemental information to provide in a paid strategy as well. The next one we've got here is, when do I need to put paid behind organic? So there's really no definitive answer to this one, but we're going to kind of talk through some scenarios here. So if your organic reach is low and you need to get your message out either to your organic following or to a paid following, then it makes sense to put paid behind organic really as soon as possible, especially if you have really low organic reach. So if you're trying to offer a promotion, or there's a short-term offer or relevant piece of information that users need to get now, for example, say you're at a conference or you're doing like a pop-up storefront that's only going to be around for a couple hours. If you only post that organically, depending on your organic reach, like we're saying, it may not reach a bunch of people. But if you're trying to get everyone aware of that, because it's so timely, putting paid behind that is going to ensure that all of your customers and followers, especially in that area, are going to know what's happening, and you'll give them a chance to, for example, come to that pop-up experience or something like that. Really, like the golden rule when I think about boosting or essentially putting paid behind organic, you always want to understand, does that post have a definitive goal in mind? Does your organic post align with your marketing goals? Does it fit in with your business strategy? And really at the end of the day, like, does it help your business? If you're just posting something organically that's a meme or a GIF or something like that, that's not going to necessarily make sense or drive your business forward to put paid behind it. But if it is one of those things like we talked about, a promotion or a limited time event or offer, something like that, it makes a lot more sense and is going to drive your business forward, whether it be growth, exposure, or even just general awareness of things that are happening. Giovanni, you want to talk through when to boost or some deciding factors on what levers to pull and when?
For sure. So this is a very common question. Oftentimes, community managers or brands are really confused about when you should boost and what those deciding factors are and how you can determine them. So when is it? Like after 2 hours, 24 hours, or when organic reach is maxed out? Or is it when organic reach is higher than normal? Typically, we actually recommend that you give it at least 4 to 6 hours before boosting, as long as the post and message isn't under any urgent or timely requirements. So you're going to want to allow organic reach to do its thing, and you're going to want to do that considering when your followers may be logging into the platform on and off throughout the day. So let's say, for instance, on Twitter that the people that you follow on there, are on mostly between times of 5 and 6. You'll want to make sure that you let that time pass before making the decision to actually boost a post. And this will really give you a chance to serve that post well and then see how it performs before boosting. Another follow-up point to this one is that your how long approach, based on like when you want to boost or when you want to promote an organic post for, should be no more than 7 days. And really, like ideally, no more than 3 days if the message is really timely and relevant and you really want that user to see it. Again, this is a very general recommendation. Usually you will know your audience and your followers and how your performance typically is better than we do and our recommendations. So you'll also want to make sure to take into account your own KPIs and your own goals. And if you feel like actually boosting this is something that will be really beneficial to your followers based on channel.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's a lot of context with this one specifically, but if you're posting like a relevant piece of news that very closely aligns with your brand and would be relevant to your customers, yes, you should definitely post that organically and maybe put some paid behind it. But you need to understand that message isn't going to be relevant, beyond a couple of days or even a week. So someone getting served that, if it's news from last week or something that just really isn't relevant anymore, it kind of steps your brand down as far as relevancy and timeliness. So you want to make sure you're as long as it's relevant, you can continue to post it. But for most cases, you really don't need to do it for all that long. And this one kind of actually rolls off that is how and when to add paid, and how do you mitigate paying for organic reach when it would have otherwise been free? So again, this is kind of touches on the last one, but as long as you're giving it a few hours to serve to your followers organically, you're good to go. If after a few hours and you've given your audiences a chance, a few hours in the sense that like not everyone is going to be on social at every time. Some people log on in the morning, some people log at lunch. So as long as you have enough of a time frame that you have the ability for your audiences to have seen that message organically, and if it isn't working, then definitely makes sense to run for paid. But mainly you just really the key here, and I think we talked about this in the don'ts, is you don't want to just go straight to boosting immediately. To the effect that you're paying for reach that you could be getting organically. And again, pay attention to what's happening, pay attention to your performance, because if you're finding that there's a lot of resonance and engagement, some cases you may want to boost that anyway to get added exposure. In some cases, you may not need to. So It's really all about context, but at least give it a few hours just to mitigate paying for your organic reach already. So these next two, Giovanna, actually are kind of similar. So we've got, if my posts aren't performing organically, what should I put paid behind them? And the next one is, when or at what point will I know if an organic post is working? So I'll just kind of jump in to cover both of these real quick, but I want to leave a couple minutes for Q&A. So if my posts aren't performing organically, should I put paid behind them? You only need to do that if it's a timely message or if you don't have another means of getting that message out when you need to. An example is a short living promotion or an offer or something that is, really important. Timeliness is really important. But when to know whether or not your organic post is working, you'll want to assess the goals of your organic search channels or social channels and which metrics are helping you reach those goals. So if you're trying to get people aware of it, if you're trying to get people engaging with it, if you're just trying to make sure that it's reaching a certain amount of people, keep in mind what you're trying to achieve when you're posting that organically to understand whether or not it's working. And then again, take those learnings and apply them down the line to your organic and paid strategies down the line. So I do want to leave a couple of minutes for questions. And actually, before we even get into that, I do want to call out, we do have a LinkedIn group that we've created to follow up on these discussions for the webinar. So I know we've only got like 2 minutes left, so we're most likely not going to get to a lot of questions. But if you have any follow-ups or maybe something that we covered in the webinar that you had additional questions or even feel comfortable asking in front of a group, come join us in this LinkedIn group. Every month when we have these webinars, we're going to continue those conversations and do some follow-up Q&A in that form as well. So definitely join. You'll get a ton of relevant information ongoing from here.
Great, thanks, Keith. I'll let me go through one question, see if we have enough time to answer. One of the questions is, we found that paid social leads tend to be lower quality than paid search. Any tips on improving that situation?
Well, yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Paid search is very, bottom of funnel, and you have hand raisers because people are coming to searching for a solution, and then you're advertising to basically respond to that. Social is different because you're pushing out that message to audiences that may not be actively looking at it at that time. And especially in the environment, right? They're going onto a social channel, not necessarily to get advertised to, or obviously not to get advertised to, more to check up on their friends, family, or celebrities or brands or whatnot. So to help your lead generation from that perspective, I guess go back to our organic and paid learnings. For the efforts that you've done organically or the paid media campaigns that you've run, look at what is successful there. Is your creative working? Are you targeting the right audiences? If you're targeting men versus women, or a specific age demographic versus another one, which ones are driving you the best volume, and lean into those learnings. That will help you get the most qualified traffic, because you know from previous experiences, that for maybe in one campaign or one brand, maybe it's men 35 to 44 are driving the most engagement and driving the most purchases. If you focus on that demographic or that audience targeted in your efforts for prospecting moving forward, you get much higher quality leads than you would if you were to just go completely broad.
Great, we're up against time here. So, thank you, Keith and Giovanna, for participating, and thank you everyone for attending today's session. We will be sending a recording of this webinar to all registrants afterwards, so everyone can look out for that soon. And once again, if you have any questions, feel free to connect with us on social media, especially the group. We'll go ahead and post some of the questions that were sent over there and answer it directly on that group. Great, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.